Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. So, as the title implies, I wanted to do a video on Biden's post-summit speech, the summit between he and Putin. I'm going to keep this short because I'm really tired. Okay, so I'm sure that by now you have heard, if you've been paying any attention, if you listen to the speech at all, any of that, you heard the part about him talking about what if America interfered in other countries' elections. Can you imagine? I'm trying to imagine America not interfering in the elections and administrations of other countries, including with military violence, CIA orchestrated coups, etc. All right, so I'm going through this just from notes from the beginning. I'm not going to do any video cuts of his speech. Yeah, so one thing he talked about, he says, oh, human rights will always be on the table. Yeah, tell that to Venezuela. Tell that to the 7 countries that we're bombing. Tell that to all the people that are dying from lack of medical equipment and medications and all that kind of thing in countries that the U.S. is sanctioning. Yeah, no. Tell that to the people in Palestine. No, human rights are not on the table. Then he launches into talking about Navalny. No mention of Julian Assange. No mention of Chelsea Manning. No mention of Edward Snowden. How about their rights? Yeah. All right. Yeah, he talks about free press, freedom of speech, censorship. Let's talk about censorship. Let's talk about the fact that every one of the people that he took questions from were lined up in advance. He had a list of names to call on, and apparently with specific questions that had been pre-approved so that he could be prepared for those questions. Yeah, that's freedom of the press, right? And where was Russian media? They were not invited to his speech. They were not allowed into his speech. Oh, and by the way, since they had the list of names already compiled of who could ask questions, that means that they had done this before the summit was ever over, possibly before the summit ever began. He didn't come up with this list. He openly stated that this was a list that was handed to him. All right, so strategic stability, Ukraine. Strategic stability. You want to talk about, the Ukraine part is mine. Should have written my notes better. You want to talk about that? How about Ukraine being admitted into NATO? Yeah, so more foreign U.S. troops on foreign soil, more weapons on Russia's border. This is strategic stability to form a threat, a militaristic threat against another country. No, it's not. So, yeah, none of that is strategic stability. All right, so then he starts launching into, sorry, I put my glasses on. Cybersecurity. Certain entities should be off limits, such as power, hospitals, etc. I'm assuming, but he didn't say exactly. This is not something to be discussing at a treaty between two nations. This is something that should be discussed at the UN General Assembly. This should be a UN treaty. This isn't something that belongs in a discussion between just two nations. Then he talks about making the Arctic a free zone with no military there. Okay, Polar's out. Fine. Make the first step. If you remove our military, chances and make an agreement, yeah, I'm sure Russia would pull their military out of the Arctic. A free zone. What exactly is a free zone? He didn't say a military free zone. He said a free zone. What exactly does that mean? What? That it's a free-for-all? Whoever shows up has the rights to whatever? No. All right, so he talks about the Ukraine, the Minsk Agreement. Well, if you've ever read up on the Minsk Agreement, you'll know that the only country that was the agreement between Russia and Ukraine, and the only party that has violated the Minsk Agreement has been Ukraine. All right? America will respond to actions that affect our vital interests and those of our allies. Vital interests. What vital interests? This is all very vague language. It's intentionally vague. It can be twisted to mean absolutely anything, just like in the Middle East. Going and invading Iraq, and that's what this is. This was what we were hearing just before, invading Iraq and bombing Syria and all these countries, talking about protecting our vital interests and those of our allies. Yeah. That just means he is threatening more war. There he goes again. America is back. Back where? Back where? Then he goes into, the questions, the pre-established list of who he would take questions from. Yeah. All right, chemical weapons. Yeah, he talks about the chemical weapons attack in Syria. Oh, you mean the one that the OPCW, the people that were actually on the ground went to the UN to say that this is not what their findings actually, revealed. Is that what he's talking about? The chemical weapons attack that actually didn't happen? Is that what he's talking about? How about the one that was never investigated because the U.S. Vetoed any suggestion by Syria, by Russia, to actually have investigators on the ground. It's just like Iran, pull the investigators out and whatever. All right, there's way too many mentions of, Navalny dying in prison. First, the MSDNC interview talks about Navalny dying in prison, and now Biden is talking about, well, can you, about Putin guaranteeing that Navalny will not die in prison. People die every day. We don't know what Navalny's basic health is like. We don't know if he's going to make any enemies in there. It's a prison. It's a prison. What this sounds like to me, with all the repetitive part of it, is that this is a CIA op, that they are planning on killing Navalny while he is in prison, to use that as a leverage point, a tool to attack Russia. Then he talks about over and over about international norms, not international law. He never once talks about international law. He talks about international norms, just like he's always talking about the rules-based order. Never mentions who sets those rules, which would be us, or our government, against the will of the American people, outside of the UN, and many of those rules violate the United Nations treaty. I've pointed this out before. I've gone through the UN treaty, the UN treaty that has been around since the formation of the UN. And the U.S. rules-based order violates a tremendous amount of that. So, and at the very end of all of this, if you watch this, Biden just looked completely vacant. He looked like he was about to collapse. As it kept on going, he was, very much, disoriented, and looked very sick. He looked really sick. If you haven't seen it, then you ought to at least watch the last, 5 minutes of it, just to see what I'm talking about. And so I have not watched the Putin press conference as yet, not the whole thing. I saw a part of it yesterday. But Putin spoke for twice as long as Biden did. I mean, literally twice as long, probably longer. And it was interesting, the different settings. They have Putin in this relatively small space. And in a room with blank walls and stuff. And they have Biden standing outdoors in the sun with the trees and a lake behind him. Yeah, tell me that wasn't planned either. Tell me that this just happened this way. Tell me that, this was agreed upon. All right. Please share this video. Talk about these subjects. If you can, then please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel, and I will catch you in the next one. Oh, and I'll be doing one on Putin's, speech as soon as I have the time.